Hello and welcome to the Two Old Guys Reselling Podcast. This is episode 51. We made it to
Yes.
51. Last week was fun. Had a good time with Scott, the Cha-Ching King. He was a great guy. You did a good job.
Yeah, he's
Picking
awesome,
him out.
dude.
You did a good job picking him out. I have to say, I was thoroughly impressed with his character and integrity in the whole 9 yards. He
Man,
was top of the line.
that's the
And
truth.
and I don't know if you noticed it or not, but he's drawing in some big fish because Rachel Strickland came over and commented too.
Yeah,
So hey, we're heading
yeah,
up. Just
absolutely. I actually messaged. Well, I don't know if she'll look at the response, but we talked about having her on as well. So
yeah,
when it comes time for another regular guest spot, we might reach out and see if she's available.
absolutely, absolutely. Speaking of guest spots, we'll just hit this right off the bat today. We was talking about this a little bit earlier, and coming up, you see it right here on your screen. If you're listening where podcasts are available, come over to YouTube and check this picture out. We're having the Highway 127 Pickin the Plateau, and I mentioned this because we was talking about guest spots. So this August 2nd, the times, everything's right here, hosted by us, co-hosted by the Reseller Locker Room, and we're looking forward to that. Hope you guys can come and hang out with us for that. We're getting pumped and we're getting close, like a little over 2 months. It's 2.5. So that's like 80 to 85 days or something.
Hmm.
Not super far off. So we're looking forward to that. But saying all that to say this is episode 51. Episode 53, 2 weeks from now, will be our first special sponsor guest. My reseller genie, Faith and Paul, will be on with the two old guys. We'll be talking to them about the meetup. We'll be talking to
Right.
them about my reseller genie. We'll just be talking, having a good time, and they are great people. I mean, I have met some wonderfully nice people. Faith and Paul are right up there at the top of the list. And that's what's so cool. The reseller community has introduced me to a lot of super nice people. I hear this all the time, like resellers are jerks. I'm sure there are some. Listen, there are some, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of nice people too. So
Right.
I'm excited about having them on too. But yeah, that Scott, man, he was great. I really enjoyed having him on.
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. Like you said, just I was, you get a feel for who you think they're going to be when you watch videos on YouTube, but talking with them in person, especially before and after the recording, those more personal conversations, just so impressed with, like you said, the character and integrity. A number one guy. I mean, he is exactly how you would expect him to be when you watch the videos. I mean, he is as good as they come.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. And, I get a little bit jealous when I read our comment section sometimes. I always try to have these really upbeat comments and be super
Mhm.
nice. And I come back in and I read yours and I'm like, he just trying to sound nicer than me. So,
And I just I'm wordy. I'm a talker anyway, and I have to be careful, man. I'm one of those people that some of them complain about, that when they leave a comment, I might try to leave a book if I'm not careful. So I
are
have to
you the,
remind myself that number one, most people don't have time to read all that stuff anyway. It's just more for me than them when I'm doing it. So
yeah,
you know, keep it short, keep it simple, and move on most of the
yeah.
time. But some things are worthy of a response, I believe. So
Oh yeah. So you're saying you're made for podcasts. Like this is right
I
down
don't
your
know.
alley.
Maybe I don't know about that, but I'm a talker, that's for sure. I have trouble shutting up. That's my biggest challenge in life, I think.
I've got a pretty good grip on the old faucet. I can talk all day, but I do know when to crank that
Mhm.
thing down and
Mm.
shut up. I
Yeah,
can.
I
But
believe you.
Tanya would probably say no, that's not true. But I can. So yeah, I'm getting excited, man. This
Right.
we've had both of us have had a lot of stuff going on, and just it's not even full blown summer yet, and I feel like that it's that summertime rush where you've got your outdoor stuff, and you can work on stuff, and it's
Yeah.
a little overwhelming. And we're still trying to move everything, and everybody sees that I'm back in the eBay shed today. I've ceased all moving anything out of here. Actually, that's a lie. I have moved a couple shelves to condense. I'm trying to condense. My purpose in doing this is I want to have like 5 or 6 empty shelves. That way, when the other reselling space is finished, when it's ready to walk into, I can walk in with 5 or 6 empty shelves, and I can come out here and empty these shelves and
Right.
just take them straight out there and be totally ready to roll. And then, then you got these empty and you just transplant them over, and seems easier to me to do it a little at a time than to try to do it all at one time,
Yeah.
especially on
Absolutely.
something that you're going to lose stuff. Like that could be pretty bad. Yep.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just listening because you know what you were saying. I was thinking to myself, I was the shelving thing because of my issue with those shelves a few weeks ago,
Oh yeah,
and
I
I've been
brought up.
trying, man, I've been trying to run down shelves online and buy shelves, and
Do
I
you have a
twice
Sam? Do you have a
twice I
Sam's
found
Club?
stuff. I don't, I don't.
I don't know what budget you're looking for, but these shelves, they're the 72 by 18 deep by
Hmm.
4 foot wide. They come with wheels. They come with shelf liners, and they come with 6 shelves. They're like 110 or 100, yeah, maybe 110. So they're a little more pricey, but you get everything with them. Like,
Well, here's my issue. You can order them online, the same thing you just called out, except they're 84 inches tall, which in my
really?
12-foot space, they're just a little bit taller. So it's the same shelf, metal wire racks. I mean, there's different brands. They all look
Yeah.
basically the same. They come with wheels. It's the big casters. They're small caster ones you have to watch, but it comes to the big
100%.
casters. I've got 2 that I
Yep.
think came from Sam's that were bought for me by my mother and father-in-law for Christmas 2 years ago. But anyway, I wasn't getting wheeled ones when I was looking at those used ones,
Right.
but I figured if I was going to buy them, that's what I would look at. Well, like I said, I found them on Amazon where I can get them for like $60. Well, then number one, they won't deliver to me to my address. Number two, they were going to charge shipping to get it delivered to a place I could get it delivered to. So then I went back, I found some free shipping that were still only like, 70 to $80. Same thing, but I'm having so much trouble finding one that will deliver to my address.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just, man, it just burns me up, because it's like you're advertising this for sale and you'll ship it to somewhere in Tuscaloosa, but you won't bring it out here to me. It's like,
Yep.
come on. So I'm going to have to figure that out. I may have to end up talking to a family member that lives in a more populated area, and seeing if I can if I can have, 10 shelves delivered to their house, because I need to get the shelves that I need for that space. I don't really want to order twice. I want to be able to just, like you said, I mean, because I'm just working off of a few in here. I
Yeah.
got a couple in this room, a couple in that room, and then a lot of stuff that just sits in tubs, even down on the floor.
Yep.
So I would love to be able to have enough space to get all my listed inventory up on shelves, and then also to be able to start to kind of sort through and shove up even the unlisted stuff, but even kind of categorize it. Have a shelf where, if I've got video game items, it can all go there, and I can kind of work through those items as well. So anyway, that's what I was kind of thinking. And then with you, what you said, I thought, even if you have more shelves of goods than if you get 4 or 5 empty, it still works out because you empty a couple of shelves, as you're moving, you can grab those shelves and take them back and just keep filling
Mm.
and replacing shelves as you go. So I'm
You know what?
excited. It's going to be a
You
big change.
you should go to one of these warehouse supply stores and buy warehouse racking, and then get you like a cherry picker and have the full blown warehouse set up out there. That'd be sweet. Riding
Hey,
around on a forklift, pulling your stuff. Let
no,
me go up
I would
here and
like,
get this
yeah,
keychain. Beep, beep, beep. Get the
yeah,
keychain.
that's what I was going to say. I'd like to have one of those scissor lifts, that's got the
Yeah.
little rack. That would be awesome. Yeah. And just have it 12 foot tall, just a little small one, not a great big one.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. I
You'd
can
never
see
get
that.
anything done. You'd be out there riding around in circles on your scissor lift.
I don't know. They move so slow. I don't know how much fun that would be.
Yeah, they're pretty slow. That's for sure. They're pretty slow.
They act like that they're gonna run the world over at Home Depot or Lowe's when they get on one. It's like everybody's running around with flags in their hands, and I know it's protocol, but still, it's so funny to me. Now the
Yeah.
forklift, I can get on board for that one because I don't trust people that own forklifts.
Well, that's what I've done for like nearly 20 years. I was forklift operator, and at the last warehouse I worked at, they had a propane forklift that it was one of the bigger ones. And man, I feel like that thing would go like 20 miles an hour. It would absolutely scorch down them aisles. And it would get to going so fast that, like, if you slammed on the brakes, you'd slide 7-8 feet easy. Just, it would just bow up, and it was a little too fast. Because
So you're
20
making me
miles an
remember.
hour on a forklift is quite a lot.
Trust me, so when I was growing up, Dad had sawmills, the little portable sawmills, and he had a forklift most of my life. It was a 50s model. It was one of those that was the big wheel on the front, small wheel on the back. Had a Ford engine. It was a NASCO brand forklift, but it had like an old 4-cylinder Ford engine like you get on tractors, and a gasoline burner. And the old mast, it was loose, it'd shake and stuff. And it didn't have brakes, so we would roll pretty fast downhill, and we got some hills around here. So, I mean, I know about the riding fast. I wasn't usually the one behind the driver's seat, but the best memory probably when he built the house over there is 2 stories and it's 10-foot ceilings. So, and then the roof is like, I think it's 8-12 pitch on the roof. So it's not the worst, right? After about 8, you go over 8 and you really can't even walk on it. But when we were working on it, he needed stuff done up in the gable, like up in the peak of the gable on the ends where the garages were. And so he built a contraption to go on the forks to slide them in that was about 8 or 9 foot tall, had a platform built on top of it.
Oh boy.
And yeah, you're seeing where this is going.
This is not going to end well.
He rolls it up as close as he can get to the gable, leans the mast out,
and
then raises it to the very top with me on it. And then after we get up there, I have to set the step ladder up on top of that.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh, wow.
And it's doing this number,
Oh Lord.
Oh man, you talk about shaking in your boots, man.
There's no
that was
way.
some scary stuff. Oh, you'll be all right. Dad, come on now. But this was the days, I think I mentioned this, and it's just the way it's different in how life is then and now in a lot of ways. We're so hyper conscious of all these things. I mean, they blast because people put it on social media, but I mean, I remember riding the plow, I was the counterweight when it wouldn't get deep enough. He'd put me on the back of the tractor, drop the draft and everything all the way down. And when it wouldn't dig right, he'd put me on it, so you're holding on to the 3-point hitch with all your weight sitting on top of a gang disc or a plow. And I mean, to me, it was fun. I mean, I thought, well, this is cool, but then you think back and like, my God, if anything would have happened and I would have fell off into that thing, it would have chewed me up and spit me out like nothing.
Oh my goodness.
Fun times,
Oh yeah, back then they didn't. Nowadays it's don't drink out of the water hose. That water will kill you. Oh no, our parents put us right in the middle of death traps.
The water hose is mild compared to what I experienced.
That's what kept us alive, was getting all that stuff.
Man.
Oh man,
crazy stuff. Crazy. I remember pushing. I'll quit with storytelling. Like I said, I could tell stories all the time, but he had a 72 Datsun. It's like mustard yellow. And we drove it for a long time and it needed rebuilt. So he used to do he was a very good mechanic, but he had got to where he didn't like to do it anymore. He had a friend that did mechanic work, had him to rebuild the motor. Well, then it needed new brakes. So Dad put new brakes on it. You were talking about this earlier on your truck. So put new brakes on it and the master cylinder was messing up, and so he had took it down the road and he was trying to get it freed up, so he could bleed them and get them adjusted. Well, it died because the carburetor started messing up. So we're like, quarter to half a mile from the house, pulled over on the side of the road next to a wood yard, like in their little place where you pull in. And the car won't start because the carburetor's messed up and the brakes are froze up. But it's little, and so we had 2 options. I could push the car back to the house with the brakes dragging, or we could walk back to the house and try to maybe pull it back with the tractor. And I was thinking in my mind, that's going to take forever, and I was probably like 16. So I was full of Spitfire and vinegar, and I was like, I'll just push it back, Dad. I'll push it back. Man, we got out on the road. I got it out on the it's just a county road, got it out there on the asphalt, and I'd start pushing. It was hard to get going. I get that thing going, I thought I got it going now. And I start relaxed. I'd let go of it, roll about 15 feet and stop. And so I made it. I was so frustrated, but man, I pushed it till we got it into the bottom of the hill of the driveway. And by the time we got there, man, I could barely stand up. I said, I'm done with this. So we had to get the tractor. I give up. In my mind, I was going to push it all the way to the house just to prove I could do it, But the driveway was far enough.
Yep. I don't know if you're freezing or I'm freezing, but somebody's freezing.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks good on my end right now.
Well, I would say it looks good on my end, but I can see myself, so that's not good.
Well, I wasn't talking about our appearance. Hopefully I'm not freezing.
No,
we're going to figure that out if I am.
I'll look later. It'll be all right. All 200 people, sorry.
Yeah.
No, that I remember stories like that too. And we never had a tractor. My dad was a kind of a farmer, like he would dabble in lots of stuff, but never really fully invest in anything. Now he gardened all the time. Him and Mom and my grandpa and my granny, they'd garden all the time, but Dad would buy a tractor and then he'd get rid of it, and he'd buy this and get rid of it, and he'd buy cows and get rid of them, and he'd buy pigs and get rid of them. And he just kind of played back and forth and stuff. He'd have a barn, then he had a barn tore down, and all kinds of stuff. But I do remember this one tractor. He tried to give it to me, and I wish I would have took it now that I'm a reseller and I know things. This was a walk behind. It had the big tractor tires, just like a normal tractor, but you walk behind it like a tiller. It was cool looking. It was actually weird looking, but it was pretty neat.
Was it a gravelly?
I can't remember. It's been 20 years since he had that thing, probably. But he told me he wanted me to take it. And at 21 years old, the last thing you want is some big old hunky, rusty tractor looking thing at your house. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't want that, And I think about it a few years later, Dad's passed away, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I had that tractor. And now looking back, I'm thinking that's probably a $10,000 tractor, like the old antique, because it ran. And he was like tilling up his garden with it, like disking and laying off rows. And I'm talking, 4-foot tires going down that row with that big old tractor, and you could get seats for them and stuff. And and it was crazy. But I let him give it away. He gave it away to a friend of his. Just gave it away.
The one that I grew up with, Dad bought a Ford 600, and I was probably, I wasn't past 6 maybe when he got it. He had one tractor before that. He had a tricycle John Deere, a big tractor, and he kept it for just a couple of years when I was really, really little, and he sold it and he bought the Ford. And the Ford was the wide, the wide front tires and all. And so anyway, that's what I grew up on. I've got it now. I've still got Dad's tractor. So I rebuilt the engine in it about, I guess, close to 10 years ago now. The lift needs rebuilt, but I'm glad that I held on to that. I'm really glad to have that. That's all those memories attached to it. It don't do much but sit, but that's okay. I mean, it means a lot to me. We take photos and stuff out there with it sometimes. It's pretty cool.
I do have Dad's old tiller. He had a yard machines from probably the 80s. And listen, when they say they made things different back then, it is true, because you can still go out to that thing and 1 to 2 pulls and it started every time. I've had it for 20 years. I remember him getting it when I was a very small child. That's 40 years ago. Plus, I mean, I don't remember him getting it. I remember him having it when I was a small child.
Right.
I don't know how long he had it before then, but it's at least 40 plus years old.
Yeah.
But that thing, the only thing it ever messed up on it, I was out tilling the garden spot, and all of a sudden it starts losing power. Like it's it's barely turning. Just it's still running full blast, but just barely moving. And I'm like, well, I noticed that I'm tilling like my handles are turning sideways, like I'm tilling sideways. I look at it and the motor is like turning. So the belt's getting loose. But the tines are straight, but the motor's turning.
Yeah, I know
So
what you're talking about.
I shut her off and I get down there and looking. 3 out of 4 of the motor bolts had fell out.
Oh my goodness.
And it's still running. It's still tilling. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So I go down to the hardware store and I pick up some bolts and I come back and put it together, fire it up, take off again. And I mean, they're just built different, like
Yeah.
nowadays you buy these tillers are going to run you like $800-900. And what are you going to get? 4 or 5 years out of them?
Yeah. Where you have problems.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
this
I,
one's
I was
40
having
years
some
old.
trouble with my weed eater, which is just a few years old. I think 4 years old, and it was like a entry level commercial Husqvarna. I mean, I bought a good one when I got it because I bought a mowing package, and I bought like the MZT, the entry level commercial mower. I'd never had a big mower out here. I'd usually used a push mower and a weed eater in my tractor to mow, but it's hard because there's a lot of terraces around my yard and the areas I cut, so the grass would be uneven. So I finally bought the mower. But anyway, this year when I went to crank it up, it's pouring gas, and I thought the gas line, because they're notorious for the gas lines to get rotten and stuff like that, and it doesn't take long because the materials are just not good, like you said.
Yeah.
And so I went and talked to him, and he said, well, if the gas line's messed up at the place where I bought it, he said we can sell you gas line. He said, but you probably going to have to replace your carburetor. I was like, replace the carburetor? Like, usually you put it in the shop and get it worked on. He's like, yeah. He said, I mean, you can bring it up here and we can work on it. But said, usually it gets trash in it, and said, there's ports and that thing. Said, you just can't get them cleaned out. Said, you can't remove it. And said, once it gets in there, said, we can never get it to run right. He said, plus, he said, just to buy the kit and to pay for the labor, he said, we're probably looking at $50 if I had to replace the carburetor. Or not replace it, but have it cleaned and built. He said, but he showed me, he pulled up on his phone. This is why I'm telling you, he pulled up on his phone. He said, but look, said, you can buy a replacement for $30, brand new. And that's the way they make stuff now, though, Caleb. I mean, they don't make it to be fixed on. They don't make it to last. They make it knowing that it's going to be a regular cycle of having to buy. You spend all that money to buy it up front, and then every 3 or 4 years, you got to buy a $20, $30, $40 part to go on it. And it's almost like a racket. I mean, they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
they be disposable, so they have a constant supply of parts that they can produce and then sell back to the same people that bought the machine. And like you said, some of those old machines, I mean, you just did not have to do that.
I've been through the weed eater game so many times. I had 3 or 4 that my dad had given me that were older, and they finally just stopped. They were older, but they finally stopped. And I would work on them and they wouldn't run. So I finally was like, okay, I'm going to buy a good one. I went and bought, at the time, I don't do this anymore. I don't like this brand anymore, but I tried a Troy-Bilt, and it was all right. The weed eater worked okay. I had it maybe like 8 months, 9 months, and I'm out here weed eating, and all of a sudden it just goes win like that. And then there's no power. The spin is just barely spinning. It had sheared the gears in the head completely in two. I'm like, this thing's 9 months old. So I found one at a yard sale and I replaced the head and fixed it, but I'm like, not even a year. So now, and that's a $250 weed eater back then or whatever it was.
Oh my goodness.
And I told Tanya, I said, I'm going to Walmart or somewhere and buying the cheapest weed eater they got. I don't care. If I'm getting a year to 2 to 3 or whatever, I'm buying the cheap one. I don't even care.
Right.
So I bought a Hyper Tough 3 years ago, still running. I'm like, $90. I'm like, this thing outlasted the Troy-Bilt. It outlasted the Ryobi or whatever I had, the cheaper ones. It's outlasted everything else I've ever bought. And I'm like, whatever, I don't care. Logan's got a Steel. It's a decent weed eater, but it's messed up a few times since I've had the Hyper Tough, and I've got like 4, I think 3 or 4. I've got a brand new Craftsman that I actually bought when I bought out Ace Hardware here We bought like $3,000 worth of stuff that was 90% off. The weed eater was one of those items. So I got it. It was like a $250 weed eater. So I got it for like $50. I'm like, I'll buy that and sell it. I never sold it. So I've still never even started it. So it's brand spanking new, just sitting out in the yard,
Right.
Probably won't run because it's been sitting in the rain or whatever. So I've got like 4, but that Hyper Tough is the one that outperforms everything. And it's like, that's my nephew was helping me weed eat down at the end of the road the other day. He's using his Husqvarna, which he had a brush blade on it, and I'm using that Hyper Tough, and his dye is like 3 times me. I'm over there, just wiring it out. And I know that doesn't mean that every one of them's going to be that way, but I guarantee you, when that Hyper Tough finally breaks, it's broke. Like,
oh yeah,
you're exactly right about Logan. He's in the power sports stuff too, and he tells me all the time, like, they taught them when somebody brings something in, you do a compression test. If the compression test goes bad, you don't even work on it anymore.
Yeah,
because the labor and stuff is so much, you can just buy a new one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what he was telling me, like, it's not worth he said there's not a lot of true like repairs that they do anymore. It's mostly part replacements. Even on now, the good thing, like you say, there's brands. The good thing is, like say for Husqvarna, is you can probably always find parts for those to replace stuff. There's brands that, they change it. If they change the model up a little bit the next year, once those parts are sold, they won't be any parts made for that model that's older anymore. But now, those brands that have so many thousands out there in use, there's so much money in the parts still that they'll continue to make parts for the older models. The first one I bought out here was an Echo, and it was still running when I got the Husqvarna. I could just tell it was getting weaker, but I ran it for 15 years, and all I did was put new diaphragm in it. I think twice, because the diaphragms, eventually start to leak, you get a hole in them. And that was it. Diaphragm and, the fuel line packet, you get that stuff to go in it when it gets bad. I think 2 times in 15 years, and it ran great.
I'll tell you one to be on the lookout for if you're at a yard sale, if they still run, Shendawa.
Oh, yeah.
My wife's uncle had one. I actually dropped a tree on it one time, and I felt so bad. We was cutting trees at church, and he laid it way over out of the way, and I'm pulling this thing, and it comes right down and just dead centers the shaft, and it just. I was like, So I found one and bought it for him, but I destroyed
back
it.
in the day. I say back in the day. I'm not an expert on this, but lawn care has become such a trendy thing for people to want to do as a side income, and it led a lot of your like consumer grade companies, even like Husqvarna. I'm not saying they didn't make commercial. Someone to tell me I'm wrong on that. I'm not saying they didn't make commercial stuff, but I'm saying it made it more profitable for them to focus on commercial or entry-level commercial lines to meet the need of the growing demand for people that were not going to cut their own grass and hiring people to do it, whether it's kids or adults doing it after their regular job. And so that expanded. But back in the day when there weren't that many people, like living out here in Alabama in rural areas that didn't cut their own grass. I mean, people living in the country hire people to cut their grass now.
I know.
I mean, it's nowadays, but like I said, back when I was a kid, the Shendawa and the Echo, those were 2 of the brands that like weed eaters were their thing. They made high grade, high quality weed eaters. And if you've seen like the state people cutting it like around signs and stuff like that, when they're cutting around the roads, they would usually be running one of those 2 brands. Like around here, they used Echo. But the couple of lawn care people that were around here that did like, they did the high dollar yards, like I'm talking about 25 years ago. They ran Shendawa. That's what they ran, because that was the top of the line commercial weed eater at the time. And I mean, that's what they. So I remember those. My uncle had one. The guy, I worked for a lawn care service for a while when I was a teenager, and that's what he had, 2 or 3 of those. And according to them, they were the best going.
It's hard to argue. So yes, thank you for being with us today on the 2 Old Guys Lawn Maintenance Podcast.
That's right. Country way of life.
Never know what you're going to get on this show.
Yeah, we didn't plan any of this.
Nothing's ever planned. I'm going to do something that that you said, hey, let's break it up, segment it a little bit better. Well, let's do that. We're
Go for it.
about halfway in. Let's throw our comment of the week out today
Okay.
and see what you got. You can go first since I stole yours last week.
Well, I'm assuming we both got Pickin from the same too. I don't know that for a fact, but I'll read Scott's because I thought his was really nice. Well, I'll let you read Scott's. I'll read Rachel's. I was going to read one of the two. I wrote down two to be sure. That work?
That'll work. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll read Rachel's. So Rachel Strickland commented this week, said, my ears were burning, so I came to check this out. Subscribing. And just, nothing complex there. But really, we did mention her last week. We had talked, I think, beforehand to Scott, actually, about, how we were, I was kind of going back and forth, but because of the teaching background, decided to contact him first. But like I said, she's another great creator out there. If you're not familiar with her, go check out her channel. You can find a lot of great tips and information. She does a lot of research. I mean, it's not fluff. I mean, you will really learn if you haven't watched her, and just a great person too. Another great person to add to the community if you're not already subscribed. So we appreciate you subscribing.
Yeah, if you're watching us and you don't know who she is, who are you?
Yeah, for real, right?
Where'd you come from? You got sent over from a lawn maintenance podcast. That's the next.
Yeah. Once the algorithm looks at all that's why we don't get subscribers. It's confused about what we're talking about. We got this title of the show, the title of the episode, and then we get to talking, and it's so scattered. They say they use the actual content, to help steer traffic. So who knows what we'll get this week?
Yeah, we no telling, no telling. All right, so I'll read Scott's comment. Cha-Ching King, he said, "You both have such a tremendous platform. It was an honor to have been invited. Congrats on 50 episodes." I will just say this: I knew who he was, and as we was talking earlier, man, he was just a top-notch guy.
Yeah,
I wasn't going to put him on the spot last week and say this, but he said he's from Texas, right?
No, it was Minnesota, maybe.
Minnesota. Where did I get?
No, he said. Remember, he lives in Texas. You mean right now?
Yes,
originally.
Right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, he is from Texas. That's where he lives right now. Yes. Okay. I apologize.
Texas. So Texas ain't that far. It's not that far. It's a day's drive. Maybe Scott will just decide he's going to show up for the two old guys picking the plateau and hang out with the coolest podcast he's ever been on. Maybe
he has dropped everything according to the podcast and driven all the way to North Carolina for a private pick before.
True.
So that's further than Tennessee.
I'll let him come pick through my sock drawer, if he wants to. And I really
only if they're vintage, Caleb.
they some vintage socks, holy socks, and there's all kinds of stuff.
Oh man, you got Mick Foley's in there?
Yeah, no Mick Foley's. Hey, speaking of private picks, I got to mention this. So the other day, I don't do a lot of Facebook Marketplace, but every now and then something will catch my eye. So this girl, local, had a copy of Super Star Wars for the Super Nintendo, sealed in the box, brand new, been put up in storage for years. I'm like, oh my gosh. I get to looking at it. You can tell it's legit. It's not one of these scam resale deals.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm going to message her. $20 is what she was asking, by the way. I message her. It's pending, already pending. I'm like, man, I look it up on eBay. They're going anywhere. Well, if you have it graded, it can be $1,000 game.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that would be one I would think about pretty seriously grading it. But just as a standalone sale, it was a $300 game, $250, $300. So I missed out on that. But then I noticed she had said down in her thing, selling my private collection, pictures to come. And so I messaged back and I said, hey, anything else you have Star Wars, I'm interested, just if you want to get together and I could look at it or whatever. And I don't think she caught what I was saying exactly, because she said, okay, I'll try to get some pictures later. Well, then she sent me a picture of a Yoda who's like a 4-foot Yoda. It was a Pepsi promotional Yoda, like a tabletop deal. I was like, man, that's neat. She never said a price or nothing, but she said it's on Marketplace. So I found it. She wanted $900 for it. Well, they sell for $1,500 to $2,000 on eBay. I was like, gosh, I'm not ready to drop $900 on one piece, but
That's an
that is
easy
pretty
pickings
dang
buy right there.
Yeah, it
Chris would
is.
snap that up and put it on eBay, wouldn't think twice about it.
Yep. And it's
He'd be like, yes,
it's
sir, I got you.
it's pretty sweet. But I was like, well, I want to know what else she's got. I haven't heard back from her yet. And I was trying to get the point across like, hey, I would be willing to come to you.
Right.
I'll bring the cash. I said, I'd love to do like a bundle deal. And I haven't heard anything else yet. But she said she has a 14-year private collection. She has basically everything. Well,
Star
if she
Wars.
had those two pieces, right? Star Wars, yeah. And if she had those two top pieces, there's no telling, man, what she has. So maybe I'll have an update next week, hopefully. I don't know. But
Yeah, stuff like that's cool.
died.
The only issue with Star Wars stuff, like the action figures and things like that, there's gems out there, don't get me wrong. But the modern era stuff, as a general rule, even when it's carded, a lot of it doesn't have a ton of value. And I mean, if you get into it cheap enough, there's still money to be made. But a lot of it too, the market's so flooded on some of the items, like I said, because it's so popular. And even with a card, it's just hard to get very much for some of the items. But like with anything else, there's going to be some rare issues of some things within that. So you just never know, man. You just never know.
You don't. And like I don't know if I ever told you about the Star Wars buy I made at a yard sale. The guy had a little bit of everything. We settled on like $125 or something. And I bought a lot of stuff sight unseen. But the main thing that sold me was he had a lot of the Matchbox Star Wars figures with the little bases.
Mm-hmm.
There's like $20 a piece, some of them 30. There's like 50 of them. So I knew just by looking at it, I ain't losing anything. If I break even, I'll break even on these,
Right.
I mean, looking at it, you're making money. And then I still have it, but I've got a jacket in here. It's a blue jacket, Star Wars. But on the front, I didn't know this, but on the pocket area, somebody has put a patch on it. Well, a friend of ours, son-in-law, was out here looking around one day. He seen it and he said, you know what this is? And I'm like, no. He said, this is the artwork, the concept artwork of Star Wars A New Hope that never released. Like this was what they was going to use and they went away from it. He said, you've got something really rare. So I dropped that thing in there at like $400, based on the patch only. Like the jacket has issues, but I'm like, ultra rare patch. I've got so much attention on that thing. Just haven't had a buy yet, but I know it's going to sell. It may be like 300, 250, but I got like a buck or two in this jacket,
I would say on something like that, when you know what it's worth, and it's unique enough, and you got a good pulse on what it's worth, I would just be patient. That Big E Levi's jacket that I sold, I could have sold that 10 times over if I would have taken $100 less than what I wound up selling it for. I had $250 and $300 offers, but I knew there were so comps that proved that what I was wanting to get out of it, the 400 or more, I think I had it listed close to 5, but I knew that was very much in the range of what it could command if the right buyer came along. And by evidence, the right buyers do come along from time to time.
They do.
And, a lot of times when you take something like that jacket, or like that one that I found, that Levi's jacket, when you do end up selling, like if I'd have sold that to someone that offered me $200 or $250, there's a good chance it winds up in a vintage clothing shop, like in New York or California somewhere, and they sell it for $500 to somebody that walks in off the street wanting to have that vintage look. That money don't matter, but they're not out there scouring eBay, to find something like that. So you gotta, I found that because I know eBay is also a place to source for a lot of people, and that maybe don't even sell on eBay. Sometimes for people that sell on eBay, but for sometimes they find stock for those specialty stores. I know they do this, and if you don't beat the flies off of it when you first put it on, I mean, you'll end up losing money in the long run.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to say it. Beat the flies off of it. I like it.
I mean, I really feel that way, because
Yeah.
when they're coming in offering you less than half of what you have something listed for, when you know that you've priced that particular item well, then I mean, there's just don't fall in that trap. Some will say, "Well, I just went ahead because I had so little in it." I mean, if I buy it for 10 cents and it's worth 300, that don't mean I'm going to take the first $100 offer that comes
Yeah.
along.
I
If
mean,
it's
if
a
it's been,
definite $300 item, I'm going to try to get $300 for it.
I can see maybe if it's been sitting for a year or two,
Oh, sure.
like then go ahead and get a decent offer. But yeah, if you've had it out there for a week, why in the world? I do that all the time. Like, why in the world would I take half price when I've got tons of attention, tons of views, tons of eyeballs on this, and I got an offer. I've actually had it happen this way where I'll get a low ball offer, I'll reject low ball offer, and like the next day it'll sell full price. I've had that happen
Right.
several times. And
And I think too, for me, Caleb, I'd like to think of it like this as far as like the amount of time in the store. I was okay with that particular item sitting longer because it held more value. It's one
yeah,
thing to be having a $30 item and someone keeps sending you $20 offers and you're trying to get at least 25 and you're just I ain't doing it. I want that extra $5. Well,
yeah,
sometimes that's stupid because 6 months later, when you haven't gotten another offer in 3 months, but you had like 3 or 4 right out of the gate that you didn't take, you'd be glad to get that $20, and you're doing that over $5 really, because if you take 20, if you want 25 but they're offering 20, so you're making that decision over 5. But when you got something that can sell for $400 or more, like what I was talking about, and they're offering you 250, that's a lot more money left on the table. That's a lot.
it is.
That's a big decision. So I think for items that they have enough value and you do have enough evidence to support that it will sell, it's worth waiting. I waited a long time to sell that jacket, not years, but it was
Right.
months, to sell it, to get the right buyer on that item. And I was glad
Absolutely.
I did. I was second guessing myself a little bit, as it set, but
Yep.
I just held true and it come out. So
Absolutely. Well, let's take care of a little business or we're going to run out of time and not get all this done today.
let's do it.
So I've got a few things we'll cover right quick. The weekend for me, last week I had one of them like death and burial weekends where I made $100, like all
Yeah.
3 days, $100. It's horrible.
Go watch this video on it. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. I made a headstone and
Yeah.
everything. Here lies my
Yeah.
eBay store. Like
Yeah.
it's bad. But this week we had some pretty good sales. We sold $560, so I was thoroughly happy.
Yeah.
However you say that, I was happy with that weekend. 20 sales for 560 ish, something like that. Uh, so I'll take that any day. And we need to. We haven't done this yet, and we hit 1,000 subscribers. So we need to set up a time to do a 1K special live edition of the Two Old Guys
Yep.
sometime in the next couple weeks, maybe when we can get together. We're going to have us alive celebrating our 1,000 subscriber goal that we hit. So we'll do that. We'll privately set up a time. You want to do it tomorrow? No, I'm just kidding. But we'll
No,
privately.
we will get one together.
We'll get one together and we'll. I've never done it, but maybe we should do like a live giveaway. We'll have to maybe have to contact somebody that knows how they do that and do a live giveaway or two or something during that show, because 1K on a podcast is pretty good because podcasts are hard. It's hard to get your audience built up there. So we appreciate every single one of you out there. If you're on Spotify, come watch on YouTube too. We make money here a quarter a week, but we
Yeah.
don't make anything anywhere else.
We're
I'm
on that.
really not lying. I'm not.
No, we're on that 100-month plan to get the first $100 check.
Oh gosh, you're not
Oh,
telling stories. That's probably true.
I'm not making this up. You can't make that up.
No, you can't make it up. Oh goodness. I did have my contractor to be possibly. He came by looking at the new reselling space again. Brought a plumber. Going to get me some estimates in the next week or so, hopefully. And if we get together on the price and everything sounds good, they could start January, June 1st ish of June. So it'll just depend on pricing and
Right.
timing and all that, because they're telling me right now it could be like right at the beginning of August when they're done. I'm like, man, that's like right at the meetup. I may have to wait till after, like if it ain't quicker than that, because that's putting a lot of eggs in one basket, or not. No, how did you say that? Lot of stuff all at once. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm out of my mind this morning, or today. But yeah, the new reselling space is going to get started sooner than later.
That's good. That's good.
Now I have a story I want to tell.
Uh-oh.
So this last night sometime, I had a buyer come in and buy a $6.91 wrestling action figure, free shipping, by the way. Everything's 25% off. So I made like $1 or $2, on this figure sometime in the middle of the night. And this is kind of how I do it. I don't always answer my questions before I do my shipping. I don't know how everybody else does it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So this guy had asked to cancel. He did not use the cancellation feature on eBay that would have flagged it and told me they wanted to cancel it and kept me from shipping it. He just sent a message. He even went as far to say, I don't want this one. I want this other one you got, this other wrestling figure that's $10. So he bought it, asking me to cancel the first one. So I don't take care of my messages. I'm packing. I pack both of them. I get a message about 2 minutes later. I wanted to cancel this. Why are you shipping it? I'm like, okay, well, it's done now. I'm not going back. It's already packed up and whatever. It's going out the door. He is very rude. Like, I just told him, I said, I made sure to politely come across that eBay has a feature that you can cancel. It'll flag it. You have to make a choice, either cancel or don't cancel on our end.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but if you don't use that, it don't tell me. And if I don't check my messages, I don't know that you wanted to cancel it because I have no alerts or no notifications or whatever. He goes as far. This is how far it went. I offered him a $4 discount as a shipping discount since he bought two. I was going to give him $4 off of a $7 item. Nope. I'm leaving you a bad review. I'm contacting eBay. I'm reporting you. I'm like, over a $7 wrestler that you failed to properly go through the correct channels to get taken care of. So I left it at that. I told him at the end, I said, he's like, you're scamming me. You're scamming me. I'm like, no, it's not a scam. It's you didn't do that correct. Like you didn't go through the correct channel. And I said, but you'll be more than welcome to send it by. This time it's already gone. It's at the post office. And I said, you'll be more than welcome to send it back. If that's what you want to do, send it back. I'll refund your money, but still not happy. So giving somebody their money, well, first of all, offering them more than 50% off just because they made a mistake, and going as far as saying, when it gets there, send it back. I'll give you your full refund. None of that's good enough. What do you do with somebody? And I mean, I think the only mistake I made was not checking my messages first, maybe responding to them first before I did. But I can't guarantee I'm going to do that every week. If I've got 20 or 30 orders, I may not have time to get to my messages.
Mm-hmm.
I may have to do that later. So that could happen from time to time. And it's like I can't always help it. What would you have done?
I don't know exactly. My mind, I'm thinking for me on something like that, those things don't come up a lot, but I do get those requests through the messaging system sometimes for a cancellation where they don't do, they don't click cancel. They just ask
Mm-hmm.
you, hey, I'm sorry, I would like to cancel this. I didn't mean to buy this or something like that. I do try to check messages as often as I can when it says I have a new message, because even if you don't get an alert telling you what the message is, like you can, when you log in on the app anyway, it'll have the little bubble that shows you've got new messages. And so I will check those. Honestly, Caleb, I think on something that with that low of a price, I might would have considered just offering to refund it if it could have put the fire out and prevented a negative feedback. I wouldn't have done that for $20, or
Yeah.
more. But I'm saying if it's an item I didn't have much money in at all, and I'm only going to be out the $7 to $10 or whatever, I think in that case, that's one of the few times when I might would consider taking the knock myself, just
Mhm.
to prevent all the headache that comes on the other end of it. I think we stress too much sometimes over a negative review. None of us like to get those. Um, I've not had but two since I've been doing reselling. And one was a similar situation. It's like somebody bought the book and then began to complain about something about the price of the book and this about the book and
Yeah.
that about the book. And I was like, well, do you want the book or do you not want the book? Well, then they couldn't make up their mind if they want. Well, then I didn't ship it fast enough. And then I'm like,
Easy.
well, so do you still want the book? Well, they wouldn't respond to my last message. So since they didn't respond, I decided, well, I guess they don't want it. They seemed really ticked about it. So I sent another message. I said, you know, since I haven't heard anything, I'm assuming that you decided you didn't want the book and I'm going to proceed with the cancellation. Well, when I canceled, then I get this ugly message back. Right, I didn't tell you to cancel my order, this, that, and the other. I'm going to leave you a negative. And so I got a negative review for that. It was just a really, it's one of those situations you live and you learn, and,
Yeah.
um, and then, but like I said, if it's a small amount, I think maybe I would have considered that in that case, not because I feel like it's right. I think, it's frustrating. And there's people by principle, it's like, I will never do that, period. I don't care. I just won't do that because it's like it. But, I look at what it, kind of what it does for the account in the big picture. So I'm not sure,
Mhm.
buddy.
I'm
It's
actually,
ridiculous that it comes to that anyway. Because I mean, the reality is, I'm looking at this thing, Caleb, thinking if you sold it for 7 and you're having to pay for the shipping because it's free shipping, you're going to spend at least $4 to ship it, probably.
yep.
So if you offer him a $4 discount, like refunding $4, you're going to be $1 in the hole plus what you paid for it already.
Yep.
That's why I said on such a low dollar item, if you're already going in the hole just to try to keep them happy anyway, I think I would just go at it full bore on that particular one, and just see. But it don't sound like it would have mattered. It sounds
Nah,
like they just want to be upset, and well, you had an accounting error, or whatever. Um,
I'm
so I'm
pretty
going to make
sure
a
that
point of
was,
proving it.
I generally will go, I've done that in times past, just go ahead and refund it. Just even, like $10, $15, just to be done with it, because people will do stuff like that. And I've started doing it like this. I will actually go look at their feedback that they've left for other people
Yeah,
just to see what kind of buyer they are. This guy complains about everything. He complained about this one person being a scammer. He had like 90 feedback, and like 5 of them was him complaining about people scamming him on eBay. And I'm like, I know and realize that there are some scams that exist on
right,
eBay, but in the 25 plus year history of eBay, it has gotten a lot better. Like, they're not on every page. They're not, not everything you see is a scam. I know people will work their titles and their pictures to sell you something that's not exactly right. That happens. I get it. But I just commented back and I'm like, you're welcome to check my feedback and see that I'm a legit
right,
seller. I don't scam people, blah, blah, blah. And nothing I said was good enough. He was basically accusing me of stealing his money. He'd accused another seller of stealing his money, stealing his item. Uh, he was going to have to open a case with eBay and wait like 3 weeks. I'm thinking, well, I mean, that is your only, like your only course of action at a certain point. eBay has that money back guarantee, but it does take a little time. And if you do get a bad buyer or seller, you have that. I mean, I don't get it. I kind of feel like if you have a bad experience, okay, live and learn and move on. Like, I
right,
don't, if I have a bad experience on eBay, I have left a few negative reviews in the past, but they're not, they're few and far between. It has to be pretty bad. Like, if somebody rips me off major, I might do that. But, just these little headache things, it's like, give them a chance to fix it. If they want to be total jerks about it, then we might talk about a negative
right,
feedback. But, it's like he went straight into, well, he threatened me. with the negative feedback right off the bat. And I'm like, that right there just gave me a ticket out of your negative feedback, because that is feedback extortion. Now I have something to go to eBay with and say, he threatened me with feedback, trying to get his money back, trying to get, blah, 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 whatever. So he ruined that course of action, because, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just like, I have noticed this, and I'll shut up about this, but it seems like the cheaper the item, the more hateful people get about the way they're treated with it. Like if I would have sold somebody $1,000 item, it's a lot better chance that they're not going to complain.
Oh, yeah.
They might ask a few questions, but seems like they've pretty well made up their mind they want it, and
Right.
I don't want to part with my $7. You've ruined my life, like $7 is going to buy my next house. Or that's really the feeling they give you. Like you've ruined me,
And look, I don't buy stuff online all the time like some people do, the volume of items. And I know that's probably part of this, but I'll say this. I'm always kind of like surprised, number one, for those items that make it into your store that are, low dollar items, $4, $5, $6, $7 items. For whatever reason, sometimes you're parting out a toy, and it's just a part that's worth $4. That's what it's worth. But your cumulative value on what you purchase is really great. I mean, I've had that happen. I bought a hat for like $1, and it was a made in USA, just a basic blue hat. It's got an R on the front. And I'm pretty sure it's like the foam like felt feel. I'm pretty sure it's like a little league hat from back in the day, but it still had the price tag, like the little price thing hanging from it. It's, super neat, great condition. I sold it a couple weeks ago, and it sold for $5 on an offer. I had it listed for like $7.99. They made a $5 offer. I thought, well, it's not like it's a $100 item. I mean, I'm going to get rid of it. I do buy or pay shipping, so I knew I wasn't going to lose money on the shipping. I send the hat to them. It makes it there. The very next day, like, the hat was too small for me, so I'd like to return it. I'm like, you're not going to get your shipping money back. I've got to pay shipping. And it's like, this hat literally sold for $5. They paid $7, right, in shipping for me to send it to them. And I'm going to have to pay $5 for them to send it back to me. It's cost $12 to send this hat to Texas or somewhere and back for a $5 hat. It makes no sense to me.
You gotta love it.
I mean, if I'd ordered a hat and it didn't fit and I only paid $5 for it, I'd have gave it to somebody it did fit. I mean, that's what I'd have done. Or I'd have sold it in my next yard sale, for $1.
Yeah. Or
I just wasn't worried about it.
Donate something. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the way I look at those things, like when it's small amounts. But now look, if you're a person that buys 30 items for $5 to $7 every month, then 30 items times $5 coming back in your account could be a significant amount of money. So I get it on that level, but good grief, man. $5, $6 like a wrestling figure or a hat. Why would you be worried about it anyway?
I often say, if you can't afford, because I get that comment all the time, can you hold this item? Usually it's 2 to 3 weeks till I get paid, and it'll be like a $9 or $10 or $12 or $15 item. And I'm like, if you can't pay for it for 2 weeks, maybe you shouldn't be buying this right now. Like, I'm not trying to tell you what to buy, but
right.
This may not be the most important thing for you to be purchasing. Maybe you need to put that money elsewhere. Like, I don't know. And I'm not presuming to know anybody's situation. It seems to me like that money could be better spent elsewhere.
Yeah. Seems to me like it'd be a good idea to close eBay, open up YouTube, and type in Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Well, we used to have this guy that would come by church, and listen, I'll help anybody, anytime. I'll do my best to help. But he would come by about every 3 months wanting us to pay his rent. Back then it was like $500-$600. And our policy was $200, was that's what the church wanted to do. The $200 was the max they would do on something like that.
Yeah.
So every 3 months he would get his $200. So, he's getting $1,200 a year off the church. And he did that, I don't know, 6 or 8 times till finally one time he showed up and they told him no. And I'm like, that's probably the right thing to do, because he's not adjusting his lifestyle to afford what he's doing. I took him home one night and I asked him, I said, you're having trouble paying your rent. I get it. It's tough sometimes. He's working 2 factory jobs, 2 8-hour-a-day factory jobs, making a total of probably 25 to 30 bucks an hour, working overtime, just barely at home. And I said, what is it you have trouble with, like that you're having trouble affording to pay your rent? He starts naming off stuff that he's subscribed to, like Netflix, Hulu. I've got this subscription. I got PlayStation, Xbox. I mean, he had all kinds of stuff. And I just told him, I said, you might ought to cut some of that off. Maybe cut back by half and you can afford your rent. Yeah. Oh, I can't cut none of that off. And I'm like, well, we can't continue to pay your bill for you. Come to find out, he was just one of those guys that went around to several of the local churches every month getting money, and he made a circuit out of it. He'd hit the same ones at a safe enough time he knew he could get money. And but we always made sure ours went toward his rent. We would actually send a check to his landlord. But at least we was doing that. But yeah, we stopped that. He did come back and try it one more time. And it's kind of sad that people they either play the game or they're so bad with money they can't manage it, because you have to manage it. Like you
do.
Cannot let it manage you.
Absolutely. Well, what you got for sale of the week this week?
You was worried I was going to forget me.
No, not at all. I'm just curious. I know you had more sales than I did. Mine's been slow, so I'm curious if you got something good.
Well, I'm going to call this the sale of the week, but it's really 3. The reason I'm calling it one sale is because it all went to the same person. So the silverware Tanya has that just blows me away.
Yeah.
She had 3 different sets sell in like 10 minutes to the same buyer. They bought a total of $210 worth, 12 pieces of silverware for $210. I show it in the video that I did this morning, and I'm like, this just is crazy.
Is it still Rushmore?
It's still the same stuff. Oneida Rushmore. I've still got.
Man.
Look, I'll pick it up. Listen to this right here. Okay, here's the tote. It's still. Wow. You see how full that is. I mean, there's another tote too. There's 2 totes like that still full, and I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, the profit margin on that's going to be good.
Oh, it's going to be. Listen, $40 into a potential of somewhere around like $9,000 or $10,000.
Yeah.
How in the world can you? There is nothing else that compares.
I mean, that's the thing. Great. If you could find that 6 times a year, a deal like that 6 times a year, and not do anything else, just 6 times a year, and keep it all listed, because you would after so long you'd have enough in the store that you'd make enough sales regularly enough. You'd make a good income. You might not. I mean, we can always make more. I'm not necessarily the guy that's trying to say, hey, can I turn this into 6 figures, 7 figures? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not me. I'm just like, I want to make a living and take care of my responsibilities. And so
absolutely.
I can see, man, that would be, man, talk about simplifying life as a reseller.
Oh yeah.
Golly, man.
Silverware. You know how much silverware I could put in this shed?
Oh my goodness.
Like, well, the biggest I've ever had, the highest I've ever had, it was 2,000 listings.
Mm-hmm.
And I had quite a bit of space left. I could have got 25 to 3,000 listings in here of normal stuff. I bet I could have 20,000 listings plus of nothing but silverware.
You'd probably sink your shed by about 3 feet into the ground.
Probably.
You wouldn't have to worry about nothing picking it up.
I hadn't thought about that. It would be heavy.
It would be very heavy.
These totes weigh 30 pounds, 40 pounds each. The bottom one's heavier. No, the top one's heavier. But I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. Okay, that's mine. You go ahead.
Going back, we were talking about tools earlier, and it's not a yard tool, but I sold a Craftsman wet sharp, like a sharpener. I don't know if you've seen them before, but it's just an electric power sharpener. They're pretty common. They sell pretty good. I had mine priced up a little bit too high probably, but I get interest in it, or would, fairly regular. I've had it probably 6 months, and I finally sold it for $45. So
nice.
I didn't think that was too bad. I think I gave $7 for it.
It's pretty good.
Not a bad flip. Yeah. I didn't have any super high dollar flips this week. a lot of, I had some other like $30 and $40 items, but it was just kind of middle of the road this week.
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention I had a golf flag framed.
Mm-hmm.
I sold it for 115, but then Tanya had to come in right behind that, just bam, bam, bam. I'm like, really, really? I do
Hey,
good. She does better. So, but
yeah,
that's all
and
right. I'll take it.
and you were thankful for it too.
Oh, I was not
Yeah,
complaining whatsoever.
right.
All right, time
I'm,
for another segment. Are you ready? Two more segments and we're out.
yeah, let's
We're
do
gonna
it.
go, we're gonna go through this quick. Here we go. So we didn't talk about this before the show. I have no idea what you got. You have no idea what I got. So this ought to be kind of fun.
I've got a good one. I doubt you have this,
Okay.
unless you have the first part, maybe. But I think you'll like this one. So, because I know you like a couple of the guys that's tied to. So, Dory Funk Sr., right?
Uh-huh.
That was the father, of course, of Dory Jr. and Terry.
Yep.
And everybody loves Terry. He's like the hardcore
Yep.
legend.
Yep.
Well, he come from a hardcore background. So, this was the week that I forget what day it was. Maybe the 16th, maybe I can't remember, but it's the week that Dory Funk Sr. was born, and so he died in the 70s. I think he's been gone a long time, but he was, of course, a professional wrestler. And the thing I wanted to tell about him, other than his birthday, really quick, is the real, as far as I can tell. So I went back and just read about him a little bit because I found it interesting. The most famous match he was in was a Texas death match. It was in Amarillo, and it was for the NWA World Title, and he was wrestling Iron Mike DiBiase, which is the father of Ted DiBiase, which I
Yep.
just thought was so cool. You think about the history and the family lines and how they stay in the business. But the thing that made this match so interesting, they started out in the facility where they were at. I think it's at a fairgrounds, and then they went out into the street and continued down another street. There's just a little bit of lack of clarity on exactly how long that they wrestled, but it was a falls count anywhere. And the way the Texas death match rules were set up, not only falls count anywhere, but if you are pinned or if you submit, you've got a 10 count to get up and continue the match. And so they say this thing lasted over 3 hours. Some say it might have lasted up to 4 hours
Oh
that they
my.
wrestled before it ended. And according to the stories of that time, now this is back maybe the 60s, maybe I don't know, maybe the 60s, something like that. But according to the stories, it was actually the sheriff of the town of Amarillo, one of the sheriffs, that came and told them they had to stop because they had gone past curfew. There was a curfew in place.
Wow.
And so they had to run. They said somewhere around 1 o'clock in the morning with some of the reports, So the official was 3 hours and 10 minutes is what they officially say. But they said others that were there said it was closer to 4 hours. I just
Wow.
thought that was awesome. You can't get 10 minutes out of most wrestlers these days before they're
I know.
gashed, I mean,
I
they're
know.
gym rats, but they don't have that endurance. But these were men, back in
These
the
were
day.
men back in the day, right there.
Men, men.
Men's men, right there, right?
So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool.
That's a good one. So I'll drop one on you a little bit more recent than that, but not too far ahead. So in 1995, there was ever only one match between, at the time, Stunning Steve Austin, who would go on to become Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the Macho Man Randy Savage. They fought as a part of a tournament for the vacant United States title, and they fought on a WCW Saturday night taping in Georgia. That's the only match they ever had, 95. Before Steve Austin he was starting to get a bit of a name as Stunning Steve Austin, but he never had time, some injuries and things like that. But that's the only time Steve Austin and the Macho Man ever wrestled each other. And I thought that was kind of cool because, they was both big stars at the same time, but the paths never really crossed.
Right.
But Savage went on to win that match. I thought that was kind of neat.
See, my understanding was at the time when Austin was getting he was gaining popularity there, but he couldn't break through because WCW at the time was star laden at the top. And from my understanding, nobody would let him get over. The stars that were at the top, nobody was willing to take a fall for him to put him into that tier. And so he wasn't getting main event cards and stuff at pay-per-views or, the big events or anything like that. And so that was one of the reasons why he decided to skip over to WWF at the time, and of course paid off pretty good for him, I would say.
Do you know the middle story of all that though?
I'm not
When
sure what.
when he got hurt also
Mm-hmm.
in that time period, and he ended up getting to where he couldn't wrestle for a while, but he could still talk. He went to ECW for a short period of time and basically turned on his Stone Cold gimmick.
Yep.
Just on the mic, like he was basically Stone Cold in ECW for a little while before he got picked up. Once he got healthy and everything, got picked up by WWF, became the ringmaster, and then finally, I was listening to something on this a while back. He finally, they wanted to repackage him. This was before King of the Ring, where he beat Jake Roberts and he did the whole Austin 316 and all that stuff. And he was sitting at home, and when he was married to Deborah McMichaels, back when they was married, and she said something about his food, and she said, "You better eat this. It's going to be stone cold." And he went, "What did you say?" And looked at her, and she said, "I said it's going to be stone cold." And he said, "That's it." And she's like, "What's that?" And he said, "Stone Cold Steve Austin." And that's how the name Stone Cold Steve Austin was born. His wife said it in conversation. But I went to school with a boy. I thought everybody loved wrestling in school. Wrong. I told this boy one day, I said, "Who's your favorite wrestler?" He said, "I don't really watch it," but he said, "I like that Cold Stone guy." I'm like, "Who?"
Oh man.
I was like, you're disqualified from being around me.
Yeah.
You didn't know his right name.
Was it not? I'm hearing backfeed. I don't know why it's doing that. It did that last week for some reason. We haven't changed anything. I don't hear it now, but I was hearing the echo of my voice for like about 10 seconds there when I would speak.
Echo.
Anyway, what I was going to say is that was it not Paul Heyman over ECW at the time? That's what because I've read about that too. That he's the one that kind of taught him the mic skills to do that. Like and Paul Heyman has actually mentored a lot of wrestlers on that end of things. And so
he was
you
the
think
manager.
about that personality. Then he's the one, and in a sense, he's been the creator of a lot of the really good gimmicks for the wrestlers. He worked with them to get them started, and they just run with it from there. I mean, he don't get enough credit, I don't think, sometimes.
No, Paul Heyman, he was with Steve Austin in WCW in the Dangerous Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
So when Steve was leaving, it was a natural transition to go work for Paul in ECW while he was hurt. And now Paul Heyman, I don't watch a lot of modern wrestling, but I have seen some of the Bloodline clips and stuff. His facials during interviews and segments, and like when people are doing beatdowns, he is like a master storyteller just from his facial expressions. He tells such a story. But no, Paul Heyman, he's probably the wrestling encyclopedia walking around. He knows he could probably make anybody a star. If you are able to be a star, he could do it. You have anything else?
No, I will just stop there. I mean, I could say this. It was also during this week that Davey Boy Smith died at 39 from a heart attack.
He was just 39.
39 years old. Yep.
Wow.
So,
well, I had one that goes along with
British
Davey
Bulldog.
Boy Smith. Oh, I love the British Bulldog back in the day. I have one that goes along. It was his former tag team partner. This week would have been Owen Hart's 59th birthday. Can you believe that?
Really?
Owen Hart would be 59 years old.
Wow.
That seems unreal. Owen Hart, man, was a underrated. He was a good wrestler, but he was a good personality too.
Mm-hmm.
Had he not died and got a main event shot, he could have been as good or better than Brett, I believe.
Yeah.
Probably better.
But that whole group, that whole family dynamic, I know some of them are in-laws, but that whole group, they were just some of the better technical wrestlers. I mean, they could do literally about anything that could be done in the ring. They did it all.
And they believed it. They believed in doing it like it was real. Bret Hart, if you listen to his interviews, he did not go into a wrestling match to choreography, doing, ballet. He said, let's go in here and have a wrestling match, and we're going to work snug. We're going to work tight. I'm not going to hurt you, but we're going to make it look real. I'll protect you, but that's the way he believed it. And you listen to him talk, he doesn't come across arrogant, but he thinks he's the best that ever did it. And if you look at it from a technical standpoint, it's really hard to argue with him.
He
But
comes across as more of a whiner than
really,
arrogant.
he is a whiner. I'll agree
I
with
mean,
that. He's a,
I mean, I'm not being
especially
that.
when he used to talk. No, he's a whiner. He is a whiner.
I mean, he is one of the best
I
ever.
will.
Absolutely. I thought he was great, but he is also, man, good grief.
He takes stuff so personal.
Yeah. He's not one for letting things go.
No.
You wouldn't want him buying from you on eBay.
Oh, no. Not Bret Hart. Sorry, Bret. You can't buy nothing. You're blocked.
Blocked.
Blocked. All right. Let's go in here and let me lose for the 4th week in a row. You ready?
Sure. I'm prepared.
So I'm going to start because I'm a big loser.
Okay.
So yesterday I couldn't figure out whether somebody was waving at me or they was waving at the person behind me. I don't know. But in other news, I lost my lifeguard job.
Mm. That's a little dark.
That's a little dark.
Yeah.
I've got to reach into the bottom of the bag.
I'm liking the direction these are going. All right. So what goes clop, 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 bang, 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 clop, 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 clop?
I don't know.
Amish drive-by shooting.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I feel like that's fairly even this week.
It's going to be taste.
It's going to be taste. So y'all go down in the comments. We're not looking for any sympathy votes. Please vote for me. No. We are not looking for sympathy votes. And let us know who won. Next week, I think I got you. Next week, I probably should have used it this week, but I think I got you.
Well, I mean, so I got like 12 and I keep having trouble. Like sometimes I think I need to bring a different one out and then I don't. And
yeah.
A couple of weeks, you just kind of let me down. They were weak. And so I decided to go with my weaker ones. And then you bring something out pretty good this week. And get all dark on me. And,
Sorry,
maybe I should have went a little harder this week.
I've got another. No, I'm gonna save it.
Well, I'll tell another one if you'll tell another one. We'll do a tag match on it.
Okay, tag match. Ready?
Let's go for it.
I don't even know if I can do this. Okay, my grandfather has the heart of a lion and a lifetime ban from the zoo.
From the zoo, yep. Yeah, I've heard that one.
I like that. Yep, we're going to get banned.
Disclaimer here. I live with Alzheimer's and dementia every day, and if you don't have a sense of humor about it, you can't make it.
You can't
make it. So don't disclaimer, don't take this personal because we're caring for my mom on a daily basis and wouldn't do anything different. So that being said, I've kind of maybe worth a joke, but what's the worst combination of illness?
I mean, I still don't know, but
Alzheimer's and diarrhea.
Oh boy.
Find yourself running around, but you don't know where.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's pretty good. Oh boy. Oh gosh, that's just visual right there.
Yeah. So you're running, but you don't.
No,
I love it. Don't remember where's I going?
Yeah. Now you disclaimed that, and we have both had family affected by that. But you really do have to have a sense of humor, or you're going to be crying all the time.
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely.
Sad, especially when they get worse and worse and worse. I've seen my great aunt. She got to that point at the very end where she couldn't swallow, her brain was, it just deteriorates and she couldn't swallow anymore. So she was basically suffocating, like it's sad, but you have to enjoy them while they're here. You got to.
Yep.
Laugh with them.
We do. that's one of the most important things. I feel like I'm always, I mean, I act in ways that I wouldn't act anywhere else when I'm in front of mom, because keeping her laughing, keeping her, you watch for those looks, because man, with Alzheimer's and dementia, little things, thoughts that come into the mind, and their mood would just turn all of a sudden. And,
Yep.
if you're perceptive when you're around and you watch for that, I mean, you can do something. I mean, you can just act a nut. You don't have to say anything. Because honestly, like with my mom, she has trouble keeping up with conversation very well at all now. She
Yep.
says she can't hear, but the reality is that just, she can't process what I'm saying a lot of times.
Yep.
So, but I can act in I can do something stupid physical humor. And, she'll just bust out laughing, and it just changes. It's like turning a switch on. The mood changes back, and then
Yep.
she's good, So, but humor all the way around is my point. Good humor for yourself.
Yep.
And there's days it's hard. I mean, there's days it's hard to have it, but yeah, the more you can keep them laughing and try to find reasons, just laugh off the things that otherwise, if you think on it the other way, man, all you want to do is cry about it.
Yeah. Did you ever see that video? And we're going to take this home. There was a lady, and you never know about videos on the internet. Are they real or are they not real? But it just kind of proves the point. Well, I don't know if it proves anything, but it's sentimental, kind of a feel good thing.
Yeah.
But they were like, this lady had Alzheimer's, and they were asking her, "Do you remember this guy?" And it would be like her son.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I don't know who you are. And they'd move around the room, and she didn't know him. And finally, they held up like a picture of Jesus, and she said, "Do you know who this is?" She said, "Oh, that's my Jesus." And it's like, God preserves some things. I really believe that, even
Absolutely.
in our minds, because listen, there's no guarantee. Me and you were in our 40s and relatively healthy. It could go south tomorrow, man, and just, you're gone. It's just over. So we got to.
There's a guy
When
I seen the other day, Caleb. He's in his 50s and he's got progressive dementia. He don't know any of his family. He still talks.
wow.
He carries on conversation, but he doesn't know any of them by name. And they were doing a similar thing with him, and they're saying, so you don't know. I know. He said, I feel like I know you. And they said, well, do you feel safe, or do you feel, no, I feel safe around you. Like he could commute, but names, he had lost names. It's like, he said, it's like his wife said, I feel like she's my mother. And, but then he was looking at the guy that was younger, said, but you're saying she's your mother. So I'm not sure. And you're saying I'm your, but that's where he was, but he healthy other than that, but didn't know names. Okay. So I don't know if we're supposed to do this or not, but here is that lady.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Food. Great food. All right. So who is Linda? Do you know Linda? What about Paul? Paul. All right. Who is Jesus? Well, Jesus is the one who saved me and lives in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And will take me home. Quite amazing. Yeah. I love him. Yesterday.
That was the video I was talking about.
Yeah. I had to show it when you said that. That helped me a lot, because like that first question, about what you had to eat. Like when I ask Mama, she'll say, I'm hungry. So what do you want? Food. What kind of food? Good food. I mean, I get that all the time. That's their normal response. That's where she is. You know what I mean? And but but at the same time, I can get the guitar out and start singing an old hymn, and she can't carry on a conversation with me, really. We talk some. It's not she doesn't talk, but she just can't hold on to thoughts. She can't find her words anymore, but she can start singing that song and not miss a word.
Yeah.
And so, you got to look for the bright spots too. You got to look for the places, the joy in it. And man, she was good to me and took care of me. And I just, just the hope is that you can do the same for them as long as possible, at least, so.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful note to end on, I think. As you
Works
know,
for me.
at the end of the day, it could be any of us, but you got to find that hope, man.
That's right.
Find that hope. All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, come back and hang out with us again. Hope to see you at the Pickin the Plateau 2 weeks from now. My reseller Jeannie will be here.
Yep.
Come back and check that out. And until then, we are two old guys and we are out. Bye,
See
guys.
you guys.